Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you? Good to see you all. It is great to have you all with us today. We are so happy you could join us for this really exciting presentation that Mario put together in such a fun way to talk about germs. And we have a fun story to talk about that and our discussions on the back end. But I wanted to do just a quick introduction. My name is Wendy Henricks, and I am with Alexander's Aesthetics. If you guys are current customers with us, thank you. If you're new customers, welcome. We're a wholesale distributor. We're a family-run business. We've been in business for about 30 years. Started in California by my cousin Alexander and taken over by my mom and dad. And then I opened a store here in Colorado. So we have 2 locations, California and Colorado. And we have been carrying products from Cebon, which is the overall company that carries prevention for a long time. So we love that they have now have this line for us to carry to offer to our clients because we just think it's amazing and is kind of a game changer. So thank you so much for joining us. We have Mario Ziskowski. Did I say that right, Mario? Hopefully, Ziskowski on the line with us. He has been with Virox for a while. I'll let him do a nice introduction of himself. And is working with Cebon with this brand. And we're just so happy to have him. So thank you, Mario, for joining us today. To get started, to let you know kind of the rundown, if you have a question or a problem, go ahead and put it in the chat. we're going to pass this over to Mario here in a second. I'm going to be on the back end, just helping answer questions, or if anyone's having problem connecting or hearing or anything like that. So you can use the chat. We will be asking questions to Mario throughout the presentation. So if something comes up that I can't answer, I will go ahead and ask that question, but we would like you to put that in the chat box. So just to make sure everybody knows where the chat box is. I know we're all familiar with Zoom now, and we also just like to see where people are calling in from. If you could just put your name and maybe the state or the city and state, excuse me, that you're calling in from, that would be great. And then you are familiar with chat, and we know that you can get to us with any questions you might have. So with that, Mario, I'm going to pass it over to you. And thank you again for joining us. We are very excited to hear what you have to say, and you have to tell a little bit of the fun back end of how you came up with this great way to present this question on germs. Mario, I think you have to unmute. Let me ask. There you go.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes,
Wendy, can you
great.
hear me?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Wendy, and thank you all for joining us this Monday on the eve of Halloween. I presume all your decorations are all set and ready, and that you're not scrambling last minute like I will be to buy candy and get a pumpkin up. Again, thanks everybody for joining us on this very exciting topic of infection control within spas and salons. This is not one that garners a heck of a lot of attention only by virtue of the subject matter, and because really at the end of the day, it's not unlike talking about insurance. We all need it. We all have to have it, but oh my goodness, we don't really want to spend that much time talking about it. So I am going to try and change all that and make this a little bit more exciting, a little bit different than perhaps what you're used to seeing from companies that get to present to you like us. And you're all largely going to be guinea pigs with this presentation. So I'm hoping at the end, even if you don't have any questions, you are able to provide some feedback and say whether you enjoyed it, you walked away with anything, and whether we should continue pursuing this in this fashion. For any of you having attended the premiere shows, you would have perhaps seen this also live, and it gets even a little bit more crazier than what you're going to see today. It involves shaving cream and styrofoam balls and all kinds of interactive, wacky engagement. So In ways of introduction, I've been with the manufacturer of this product since its inception some 25 years ago. It was primarily, first and foremost, introduced to healthcare, and that's where it really cut its teeth as a different disinfectant to the more caustic and harsh chemistries available out there. And that's where some 25 years ago, up here in Canada, we had the first pandemic known as SARS. It was very localized. It didn't become what COVID became, but it was very instrumental in keeping infections at bay within healthcare organizations here in Canada. Since then, the disinfecting technology has moved on into the dental world, the veterinary world, pro beauty, farms, and even on the International Space Agency. Again, because of its benign formulation, this was a technology that was deemed of value for NASA to not expose the astronauts to, again, those harsher chemistries. But today we're here to talk about infection control for all you lovely estheticians, skincare specialists, and anyone else that I perhaps left out in those related spheres. And so my approach, as you can see from my title slide, is to equate germs with caustic relationships, toxic relationships that we may have in our lives. So let's see if this resonates. And again, as Wendy has said, feel free at any point to throw a chat question, and she'll interrupt appropriately if I can answer it in the moment. So let's get into breaking up with germs, a spa love story. All right. So welcome to Breaking Up with Germs, a spa love story, brought to you by Prevention Salon and Spa Disinfectants. The topic of infection control may not be as thrilling as a whirlwind romance, but it can still result in a lot of drama, heartache, and personal stress. But not to worry, today I'm here to spill the tea on how you can keep your spa clean and germ-free with as little effort as pasting an update in your Facebook profile. See if I can advance the slide here. Did that go? Yes, it did. All right. So if you've ever sat in on an infection control presentation, this is what a typical slide would look like. It's very technical, it's dull, and we start losing people very quickly. We are not going to do that today. We're going to shake things up a little bit and see if this content can be presented a little bit differently. So, in an ideal world, your client relationships would all look something like this: beautiful, healthy, in a world perfect. But as the saying goes, beauty is more than skin deep, and what lurks just below the surface can lead to STDs. And in our world, that means spa-transmitted diseases. That's right. Illnesses, disease, and infections are spread through germs, and because they're so small, we can't always see them. Well, we can actually never see them. It's sometimes easy to pretend they don't exist. So let's bring them out in the open, call them out by name, and understand the risks they pose to you, your clients, your business, and your reputation as spa professionals. There are three germ types that typically like to make an unannounced drop into your spa. So let me introduce these unsavory characters to you now, and I warn you, this may not be pretty. All right, first and foremost, we've got Mr. Bacteria. They promote themselves with profile names like Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. They're responsible for those not so glamorous skin infections that will leave your clients feeling rather irritated. E. coli can ignite a fiery gastrointestinal affair that puts you in the hot seat. Klebsiella pneumoniae causes a double dose of trouble with both respiratory and urinary tract infections. And Inositobacter preys on individuals with compromised immune systems. Bacteria can make your skin crawl, leave you short of breath, or fight dirty below the waistline. You don't want bacteria getting anywhere near your workstations or treatment areas. Then we've got, while bacteria can get under your skin, viruses are the true drama queens. They've been in the headlines lately spreading COVID, but that's not their only claim to fame. Cold and flu season are just around the corner, and they're ready to spread out their annual influenza mayhem. There's also Hep B and C, the dynamic duo of hepatitis, and infamous herpes, and still relevant HIV, all ready to make an unexpected guest appearance. Viruses should never be taken lightly or ignored. And finally, we've got fungi. He's the lonely germ who enjoys spreading around athlete's foot and pesky nail fungus. Anyone who's encountered nail fungus knows just how unsightly it can be. Trust me, you don't want to see those pictures. And how stubborn it is to get rid of. Fungus is like trying to get rid of that annoying ex who just keeps coming back. Germs come with some quite nasty profiles. For example, bacteria can replicate every 20 minutes. That means a single bacterium can become 1 million in 8 hours. And here we're just talking about a single germ. Imagine if it was married. Okay, but virus can live on surfaces for weeks, even months under the right conditions. And fungi may not replicate as quickly, but nonetheless can become an issue if left to themselves. So again, in live demonstrations, if you hold your fingers up and see a little space in between my 4 fingers there, so that space alone can hold close to 1 billion bacteria. That's how small they are and how numerous they can be in number. As under 100, I think the stat is under 100 individual bacteria can actually result in an infection. Shigella, one of the well-known germs in third world countries that spread dysentery, they can spread with less than 100 single bacteria. So imagine the tens of thousands, millions that can accrue if left uncontrolled. These germs will use all sorts of pickup lines to get your attention, but trust me, you don't want nothing to do with them. You wouldn't bring them home to meet your family, and you certainly don't want them showing up unexpectedly at work. Aside from transmitted diseases they carry, they can also negatively impact your business. They can get you in trouble with state and cosmetology boards and give you a bad rap with your clients, which can get spread like juicy gossip. All right, so those are the, let's just quickly summarize. Those are the big 3 players: bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Probably within the aesthetics world, fungi are not as big a concern. They're more a concern within the nail salons. But you should still be aware that they can be spread with people whose hands are affected with nail infections and can spread to others that way. So how do these germs spread? All right. So one of the most common ways that we're all familiar with is through personal contact. Any of these activities are ones that can typically spread germs. Now, this was the easiest one to avoid. Simply don't do any of those things on the list. The other one that we've come to get used to, especially with people with colds, and during COVID season, is aerosolization. Basically a technical term for expelling respiratory droplets from either the nose or the mouth. But it's not necessarily just limited to that. It can also be as a result of laughter, loud talking, coughing, etc. Now, during the pandemic, we all wore masks to prevent that from spreading. But since now masks have fallen by the wayside, that method of spreading germs, whether they be COVID or influenza or any of these other viruses, are now relevant once again. Germs can also spread through contact on surfaces. They're really well known for being freeloaders, and they don't pick up the check. So counters, chairs, equipment, skincare devices, containers, door handles, all those physical objects that you can think of that you interact with during the course of the day are areas where these germs can continue to not only live, but thrive and replicate. And here's the kicker. The you've got to be kidding me moment is that as these germs are harbored on these various surfaces, they are growing, they are replicating, and they're spreading in turn to other hard objects within your working environments. Then it's just a quick matter of touching your eye, rubbing your nose, your mouth, etc. And now you've internalized those germs and potentially spread the disease or the infection to yourself or potentially to others, family, colleagues, friends, anyone that you potentially come across. All right, so let's just do a quick review. Germs lurk even though we can't see them. The main kinds of germs are bacteria, viruses, and fungi, and each of these can lead to infections, diseases, and illness in unsavory different ways. These germs can be spread through personal contact, through aerosolization, and through contaminated surfaces. A point of differentiation that you should know as you're referencing germs is that people become infected, surfaces become contaminated. So you cannot say, I've become contaminated, you've become infected, and the surface cannot become infected, it's become contaminated. So the correct way of referencing this is, I got infected with a disease because I drank contaminated water. So you have to make that distinction between inanimate and animate objects. We've identified ways that the germs spread. An easy one to avoid is personal contact, but personal contact need not necessarily be limited to just swapping spit. It could be a hug, it could be a touch, it could be an embrace, a handshake. Any one of those methods can be infectious and can spread the disease. We've also discovered through that aerosolization, that cough, that sneeze, that loud talk can also spew those germs onto the environment and onto surfaces. Once on those surfaces, bacteria and viruses and fungi can actually exist for hours, days, and in certain conditions, even months. So they're always going to be present, and they can also then replicate if not removed, killed, or eradicated. All right, here's a little myth buster. We all wear gloves, so I don't really need to worry about germs. And yes, that is true to a certain extent. It does protect immediately your hands. And again, when I get to do this in live demonstrations, I typically will spray a surface with lots of shaving cream to replicate what these germs will look like. And as I touch the various objects on my table, my work surface, my treatment areas, etc., that shaving cream gets spread just like those germs do. And they're on my gloved hands. And as I touch my phone, my coffee, the various objects that I'm working with, that shaving cream or those germs get in turn spread to other objects, the table, the handles. I go for a washroom break. I go to the break room to get a snack. I go to the front of the reception area. All those areas that I'm engaging and interacting with are now a source for spreading of those germs. So my hands are protected. The environment is not. Then at the end of the day or after your service, you remove your gloves, you dispose of them, And now you go handle all those objects. You put away, you call your husband, your friend on the phone. That phone was contaminated. You go and sip a cup of coffee. You have a glass of water. All those surfaces now still hold germs that have now been spread to your hands. You touch your eye, you sneeze, etc. Now you've just internalized those germs again. So there is a notion of false sense of security when wearing gloves, because in the moment, yes, you've prevented germs from coming in contact with your hands, but it does not remove the germs that are present within your working environments. So that's what you have to be very acutely aware of. My wife works in healthcare, and as the nurses and docs do their rounds, they're actually prevented from wearing gloves for that very reason. They would rather that they then became acutely aware of the contact they had with those germs and then went and washed their hands prior to seeing the next person. Now, I appreciate that in many of your treatments and services, gloves are best practice, and you should continue doing so. But the caveat or the warning here is that those germs are still nonetheless present, and you should be aware of them. The unfortunate thing is that you can't see them, and as such, unlike my shaving cream example, it's a little bit, it's easy to become complacent and appreciate or think that they're not a cause for concern. All right.
Mario,
So now that
can I interrupt?
yes.
Come in. We do have a question from Sabrina, and trying to clarify, but I think she's wanting to know if germs can be spread through a facial and a massage by that touch.
They can if typically skin bacteria will be present on a person's body, especially if they have that affliction. Clients may not always share their personal health history, but nonetheless they do want to go have a spa treatment or a salon treatment. I think you can all identify this is typical of hair and nails, but I'm sure it's equally true within your own environments. When people are feeling a little bit under the weather, they give themselves the excuse to go have a spa day. And so instead of staying home and isolating, they go and get their hair done or nails done or a facial just as a little pick-me-up. Well, that's great for them, but that also means that they've brought those germs into your working environments. And as such, you have to be doubly concerned about those risks. Can you get a skin infection from someone who has a skin infection by providing a facial or a massage? Yes, you can. And that's why these protocols, this education and these disinfectants exist. Whilst you're interacting with that client, you should be aware and treat it as if you are being exposed, and then take the necessary precautions after you're done with that service or treatment to mitigate the risk by what I'm going to get into now to talk about how you reduce or eliminate that risk altogether. That kind of answered the question?
Thanks, Mario. Yeah, I'm chatting with her, and she said yes, it did. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Sabrina.
All right. So I know I've painted a pretty dire picture of all these now invisible germs that are going to cause nightmares, but don't worry, because really we've got your back, and it's really straightforward and simple how you can make yourselves much safer in your environments and much safer for your clients as well. We've got the equivalent of a bodyguard or a wingman that has your back. And your first line of defense, as I've just talked about, is really hand hygiene. It's incredible that within 15 to 30 seconds, you can pretty much remove all the germs that have accrued on your hands, either through that massage, through that facial, or if you inadvertently came in contact with a contaminated item, your phone, your cup, the devices that you encounter and work with. In a pinch, if you don't have access to water and soap, you can use sanitizers. But as any of you, perhaps through COVID, have experienced, excessive use of hand sanitizers will start to dry out your hands and start getting peeling and cracking. So it's in a pinch, it'll do because it's in your purse or you've got it somewhere on the go when you don't have access to water and soap. But just regular hand washing really does an incredible job. So hand wash, hand wash, hand wash. The next one is to deal with those germs that have taken residence on all those hard surfaces within your spa environments. And again, just start to imagine all the different things that you interact with, things that you touch, the things that you use. Now with all the different devices for providing those different services, they get touched with gloved hands, with bare hands. So it's an opportunity for these germs to really take hold within all those areas. So the only way to deal with those situations is with a disinfectant. And I have this slide up here as well. I know that I'm not talking to a hair audience, but they too have the same issue, the same problem. And perhaps if it's not relevant to you folks, you should be aware when you do get your hair done that they too are breeding grounds for germs. And you should be looking out for how those workstations are being reprocessed, turned over prior to the next client sitting down in the chair. Same concerns. The hand rests, the various items that are being used interactively with you are potentially carriers of those germs. So it's not that it's just limited to estheticians. Massage has that issue. Hair, tattoo, barbering, all these professional beauty services have this as a reality that they need to confront. All right. So here, if there's one thing that you can walk away with today, here's one of the most important ones. So far to date, the technology has not created a disinfectant that works immediately on contact. They all require something called wet or dwell time. And what that simply means is that if you're using a wipe or a spray, you have to allow for a certain amount of time for that surface, that object to stay wet before you can dry it and take that solution away. If you'll recall, at least up here in Canada, when we had the COVID outbreak, when we used to go shopping, they would give it the carriages a quick Lysol wipe and then hand it to you. And I always got worked up because I knew that was absolutely doing nothing other than making us all feel a little more comfortable. But just wiping the carriage handle with the Lysol wipe and then immediately drying it with a paper towel was actually ineffectual. It was not ridding any germs whatsoever. So if you're all using disinfectants now, take a look at the label and you will see that all the instructions include must stay wet for, and then it'll list a specific amount of time. If you're not allowing for that amount of time, it's not that it's not killing any germs, it's just not killing a sufficient amount of germs to prevent them from, again, replicating and continuing to be a problem. So you must adhere to that dwell time to be reasonably assured that 99.99% of those germs are being killed between your services so that they do not become an ongoing issue. So again, if nothing else, be aware that wet and dwell times are a reality with any disinfectant you're going to be using. So what ends up happening is this phrase that we've coined called premature evaporation. A lot of the disinfectants that are currently being used in the marketplace are made with alcohol. Alcohol is a very quick drying agent. And as such, if you've got longer contact times, you may not be able to stay wet for the duration of what the label is indicating as a result of premature evaporation. If the product evaporates prematurely, then you have to reapply it and ensure that that amount of time is actually being achieved. The longer the contact time, the less likely it's going to be achieved through a single application, requiring an additional wipe or an additional spray. It starts getting a little bit messy and complicated. You should be aware as well, again, if you read the label of your products, that they may come with differing times depending on the various pathogens or germs they're looking to address. It is not unlikely that you'll see something like this, where 2 minutes for bacteria, 3 minutes for viruses, and then 5 minutes for fungi. The uncertainty that this results is that, okay, what am I killing today? Am I killing bacteria? Am I killing viruses? Or am I killing fungi? And as a result of that uncertainty, you're probably going to just have to leave the surface wet for the longest time indicated to ensure that you're getting as many of those germs as possible. Because from a practical standpoint, you're not going to say, oh, I'm just here to kill bacteria, therefore 2 minutes is good enough. You just don't have that kind of time, nor do you have that ability to monitor wet times. So those are the two kind of caveats that you have to be aware of, is that that contact time has to be met in order for the product to be effective. And the contact times will vary from product to product to product. And finally, there is no disinfectant that will just kill on immediate application. All right, so just this is kind of like a commercial or an aside. If we've identified that soap and water is enough to get rid of the germs on your hands, but a disinfectant requires multiple minutes or multiple applications to get rid of germs from the surface, how is it that one can be very quick and one takes much longer? And the interesting thing here is that the body still is such a miracle of science, if you will, because our hands produce fat and oils and secretions that, when combined with soap, don't actually kill germs, but they envelop them in a bubble. And then when you rinse your hands in the water, that bubbly germ water simply gets flushed down the drain. And that's why soap and water is such an effective method of germ control on your hands, whereas for surfaces, you need this more lengthier approach with disinfectants. You do not need to disinfect your hands. A simple soap and water approach is good enough. If you use that at cocktail parties, you will be quite popular. I've done that a number of times. All right. So now it comes to the question of, well, what disinfectant should I use? Aren't they all basically the same? Don't they all do the job of killing germs? And yes, they do, but they are not all the same. And they do differ in very different ways. So when you're going out and shopping for that disinfectant, here are the considerations that you should be contemplating. At the end of the day, it's a question of balance. And on the one side, you've got efficacy. Is this product powerful enough to kill the germs that I'm going to be encountering in my spa or salon? And are they still safe enough for me to use on a daily basis after every client use? And this balance is not an easy one to achieve. We could easily create disinfectants that are super powerful. A stick of dynamite could do that, but it would also then blow up your spa and everybody within it. We can also create very safe disinfectants like vinegar or lemon juice that will probably kill germs, but they would do so in 20 minutes contact time or an hour contact time. So it's impractical to use them. Combining those two is what's really, really difficult, finding that sweet spot. And then we have a third consideration, which is one that's increasingly of importance to everybody. Can they also be eco-friendly? Can they also have minimal impact on the environment? So it's a triangle of power, safety, and not doing bad by the environment. All right, why not just use Lysol and Clorox? We can get them at big box. We can get them at Walmart. They're cheap and cheerful. And we see them actually in salons, more in salons than we do in spas. All right, you certainly can use these disinfectants, but be mindful that they've been created for household environments. The germs that you encounter in your home with your immediate family and your pets are not the same germs that your clients bring to you in your spa settings. So these disinfectants are created for domestic environments, so their contact times are long, and they're not addressing as many nasty germs as the ones that we've outlined by bacteria, viruses, and fungi. So you really need a professional grade disinfectant to be used in professional spaces. Typically, you'll see language like hospital grade. And those are the ones that are more ideally suited for your professional environments. Now, can you use these? You know, how many of us have used pliers to put in a nail in the wall because you can't find a hammer? In a pinch, they will work. Are they as effective as professional disinfectants? No, they are not. In absence of anything else, for sure, it's better than nothing, but there are better products out there to address the specific professional applications that you have within your facilities. All right, so here's something really interesting, that the disinfecting technologies, what actually kills the germs, the active ingredient, if you will, within the disinfectants that are being used today have not changed in decades. In some cases, several decades. Bleach has been around for 100 years. The alcohol and quat-based disinfectants have been around for 50 or 60. Those technologies have not measurably been changed in long times. However, your spa and salon environments probably don't look like this. The techniques and services you use don't look anything like this either. Your phone probably doesn't look like what the phone that you used 10 years ago looks like. And yet disinfectants have not perceptibly changed. Now, back in this era, concerns for speed, concerns for your own personal safety, and certainly concerns about the environment were not priorities. As long as it killed germs, it didn't matter what kind of damage it did to users. So what happened is some 25 years ago, a new technology was created or discovered by the manufacturers of the disinfectants we're here to talk to you today about. And the technology was based on hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is a disinfecting chemistry that's very effective. They just couldn't figure out a way to keep it stable long enough to do the job. Basically, if you recall, our moms and grandmothers, when they bought hydrogen peroxide, they would buy it in a little brown bottle, and that's because it was very susceptible to light. And as soon as you open that bottle, you had to use it within a specific amount of time before it became inert. So it just wasn't a commercially viable chemistry. These guys figured out how to stabilize it. And once they did that, that's what became the genius of this product, because hydrogen peroxide is in and of itself a very powerful disinfectant, but it's also a very safe disinfectant because it doesn't contain all those harsh and caustic chemistries. The hydrogen peroxide you buy at the drugstore is a 3% concentration. This uses 0.5%. So 0.5% of hydrogen peroxide is actually being used in these products. The rest are inert ingredients that just help with cleaning and help with ensuring the surface stays wet long enough. So these are EPA registered hospital grade disinfectants. And here are the three superpowers that they bring to you to make you the hygiene heroes over germs. All right, so prevention kills bacteria, viruses, and fungi in just 1 minute contact time. That's about 10 times faster than other disinfectants. And again, when you contemplate using some of those longer contact time disinfectants, you may have to do reapplication, rewiping. Here, you do not have that concern. One wipe and done, one spray and done. As I mentioned, prevention is also the safest disinfectant. It's non-irritating to eyes and skin and does not come with that heady, harsh odor that you associate with some other disinfectants. Exposure to that heady smell all day, every day, results in respiratory complications, fatigue, dizziness, etc. So with prevention, you don't get that because, again, there's no alcohol in it, there's no bleach in it, there's none of these caustic chemistries that you're more familiar with using elsewhere. Even though gloves are considered best practice within your workplace environments, this prevention does not actually require the use of gloves. So again, I would encourage you all to read the label instructions on the disinfectants you may be using now if you're not using prevention, and you will also see that gloves and potentially other PPE is required for their use. Not the case with prevention. Again, I'm not suggesting you don't continue using gloves within the applications, but it's kind of nice to know that at the end of the day, if you just wanted to grab a wipe and do a quick wipe of a surface or an object, you can do so without donning on another pair of gloves. And then finally, prevention is also eco-friendly. And I couldn't fit the word eco-friendly on there, so I came up with the term eco-chic just so that it would fit on the slide. Hydrogen peroxide, when it breaks down into its component parts, it's oxygen and water. So you'll recall before I said that it was being used on the International Space Station. Again, another reason why it was favored by NASA to do so, because once it did the job of disinfecting, it broke down into water and oxygen, benign materials for that extreme working surface or that workspace. So it's a biodegradable formulation that does not cause any long-lasting impact on the environment. One of the things that you should also be doing when you're reading label language is also read the SDS, the safety data sheet, which is an extension of the stuff that they couldn't fit in 6-point type on your label, which provides for additional warnings for usage. Accidental ingestion, spills, flammability, all that kind of stuff is contained on the SDS. But it also contains information about long-term exposure, whether it's a carcinogenic, whether it has environmental impacts, etc. If you go to the website, you'll see a comparison of prevention against other competing disinfectants. And we just took the label language, we took the SDS language and did a head-to-head comparison on all those factors so that you can make an informed decision about what disinfectants you want to work with. So in summary, we've got the fastest acting disinfectant, the safest acting disinfectant, and the most eco-friendly or environmentally friendly disinfectant.
Mario, is this a good time for a couple questions?
Or
do you want to wait?
Yes, I'm going to advance because this is a cool place to start.
Oh, okay. All right. If you want to continue, we can, or I'll let you know the questions. And but Claudia would like to know if this can be used to disinfect high frequency tools.
Yes. So we should address tools very specifically, because I know estheticians, you do use implements that need to be put into a soaker. So these are implements like your tweezers, your comedone extractors that come in contact with bodily fluids. Those tools need to continue to be placed into a soaker for the requisite time. Prevention is not a solution for that. We are working on something that will be better than what's out there, but that is not yet available. This is strictly for surfaces, devices, and equipment. So for the device in question, Wendy, we do quite well with those devices, only because this chemistry is far more compatible by virtue of not having alcohol or bleach as an active ingredient. That means it won't crack your upholstery surfaces like your vinyls and the materials used in the beds and on the chairs. But it also is really good with those wands and those displays associated with various skincare equipment.
Okay, great. Thank you. One more question from a client that we have who's from Maine, and she would like to know her state's, if this is in line with her state's spa requirements for disinfecting and sanitizing, and are there any materials like glass, wood, metal, or plastic that it cannot be used on?
Very good question. Thank you. When Prevention made its submission for EPA registration, it also did with every state separately. And there are some states that are far more strict with the type of disinfectants that they will or won't allow within their state. And those are taken into consideration with cosmetology guidelines within each one of those states as well. And Prevention has applied in each one of those states and received approval to that end. So yes, it does meet your cosmetology requirements. We also are doing a lot of education to that end with various schools to inform students who are going to be future professionals. So yes, on the cosmetology front. And on the compatibility front, yes, as long as it's a hard, non-porous surface or object or device, you have compatibility here. Bear in mind that the speed with which this also acts means that the chemistry is also in less contact with that surface, and hence makes it more compatible. When you're working with something that has a 3-minute, 4-minute, or a 10-minute contact time, that means that chemical also is working away at corroding some of the surfaces or items that you're working with.
Great. Thank you, Mario.
Okay.
That's it for now.
All right. So, but wait, is there more? Yes, there is. We are also, the Prevention is the first disinfectant to come with a with this refill pouch. And what that simply means is that when your canister is empty, you snap off the top, you put in a new bag of wipes, you clip off the top, fish the first one through, and you continue to use that container. What that means is you're not throwing that plastic packaging out, which oftentimes does not end up actually getting recycled, but gets instead incinerated or ends up in our waterways. But because we're also not selling you more plastic, we're also able to pass on some savings, typically in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%. So your ongoing cost for using disinfecting wipes comes down with this refill program. So not only good for the planet, but also good for your pocketbook. For those of you who sometimes perform services on the go, we have these small portable packs, and they neatly fit within your travel case and can be used very conveniently without wandering around with those larger canisters or spray bottles. So, as I'm bringing my presentation to a conclusion here, with prevention's unique combination of speed, safety, eco-friendliness, and convenient packaging, getting rid of germs is now easier than swiping right. Haha. Tell your other disinfectants that things just got complicated and you're putting an end to their lack of effort, toxic ways, and having to put up with their garbage. It's time to start loving your disinfectant as much as it loves you. If you'd like to continue your education, this online course that we've put together, it takes about 20 minutes time. It's free, and it results in a customized certificate that you can then download, print out, mount on your walls, share on social, and demonstrate your elevated commitment to keeping not only yourself but your clients safe. It's a fun course to take. Again, it's not dry. It's easy to do, and it'll go over basically everything I've showed you today, perhaps without so much tongue in cheek. But I encourage you to all embark upon that. Our website also supports you with specific protocols, downloads, other materials that we've also shared with Alexander's. But if you wish to do some further exploration, I certainly encourage you to do that as well. As a point of interest, I made some fanfare of the fact that the technology used in prevention is also being used aboard the International Space Station. But just last month, we also presented before the Makeup Artists and Hairstyling Guild of California. And they came to us with interest to see how they could deal with upcoming influenza. This was just after they finished their strike. And we were able to provide a presentation that demonstrated that not only should they be worried about influenza, but ongoing germs within their closed set environments. And they took great interest. So not only is prevention keeping your spa safe, but it's also keeping your A-listers in Hollywood safe as well. So where I started by saying we've got all these germs, they're everywhere, they can lead to all kinds of infection and illness and health complications. I hope I've been able to demonstrate that infection control or dealing with germs is actually can be quite straightforward and simple if you've got the right education and the right product. We'd like to think that with prevention, we're providing both of those attributes. It's superior disinfection, but we're also helping you with education, certification, and ongoing learning. So we've made germs one less thing to worry about, so that you can focus on your clients or have some more free time to spend on yourselves. That's entirely, how you spend that time is entirely up to you. But we've enabled and facilitated that choice. And that's where I'm going to end, folks. So I don't know how much time I've left, a few minutes for any additional questions, but by all means, if anyone has anything to say, let me know.
Thank you so much, Mario. That was very informative. We did have one more question, which was something I was going to bring up, but Sabrina was wondering if there's any special package deals. So what we are going to do is send all of you that have attended the webinar an email with a YouTube link so you can rewatch this, as well as a code just for you to use on our website to order prevention. It'll be 10% off. So we'll send that into your email. And again, it's only for the for those of you who attended today. So we really appreciate that you took your time out of your day to hear a little bit more about this great product that we're so happy to be carrying. So thank you. We're getting a lot of thank yous in the chats, Mario. People really enjoyed the presentation, so thank you so much. Oh, that's cute.
Thank you, Wendy, for this opportunity, and for all of you who sat and listened. I hope you were able to walk away with a few gems and keep yourselves and your clients safer, having spent some time with me.
It was great. Thank you so much, Mario, for all your
Happy
support.
Halloween, everybody, and stay safe.
Yes, you too. Everybody take care. Bye now.
Bye bye now.